Good morning. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to speak to you today. I was thinking about it earlier on, and in about 2000 through 2008, most of my speeches were breakfasts or lunches similar to this. Then the recession happened, and all my speeches became dinner because there was alcohol involved. So it's actually rather good to see in getting back now to breakfasts and lunches again. I've given actually a very, very short period of time to speak to you this morning. So what I'm going to touch on is basically a comparison. What I think is going on in the US economy, what's going on in the local economy, how they compare and contrast. And I believe we've got a few minutes for questions afterwards. So to start off with, I think this is great. I saw this, it's cover of Time magazine, and it was a quote saying, listen here, you're a snivelling excuse for a recovery. You're so scrawny you might dry up and blow away. That's a fairly reasonable statement to make. The recovery out of this recession has not been as aggressive as anyone would like it to be. So how do we define recessions? Recessions are defined as two negative quarters of GDP, which is basically the value of the goods and services that we create as a country. We had the Great Recession, 4 quarters. Are we out of it? Yes, we are. Are we expanding again? Yes, we are. However, the problem really is the expansion is not quite as robust as I would like to see. This is my forecast through this year. We're not going to touch 3%. We're probably going to be in that mid 2.5% range. Is it expansion? Yes, it is. Are we likely to go back into recession? I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But we are growing and we are expanding. We lost 8.5 million jobs through the recession very, very quickly. So this looks at 12-month employment change over time. And you can see here, the expansion was quite robust earlier on. We then dropped off, really, through the floor. Are we recovering jobs? Yes, we are. And month over month, the recovery actually is rather good as well. Everyone actually asked me about this huge spike we saw here, when all of a sudden we created 500,000 jobs in 1 month. And of course in that month everyone was saying, yeah, hey, the recession's over, it's back to 2005. No, it wasn't. Those were census takers. They got hired, they really were. They got hired and then they got fired. So, are we growing? Yes, we are. Last month's numbers really weren't very good. I think it's just an anomaly. I'm not too concerned about it. I think we will probably average about 180,000 jobs a month. We need 100,000 jobs a month just to keep up with population growth. So it gives you some kind of an idea. So are we growing? Yes, we are. Below par? Yes, it is. And I think we all said we'll create probably shy of 200,000 jobs a month through 2012. The unemployment rate is on its way down. This is obviously a very good thing when one lays one over the other. Now we did see a drop in unemployment a while ago. Again, everyone got excited. But it wasn't exciting. The reason being is that how you measure this kind of number. So you look at unemployment, the unemployment rate. If you're not looking, you are not counted. And therefore people quit looking for work. Because well, you know, can't find a job, I'm stopping looking. If you do, you're not counted, therefore the unemployment rate is going down. Over the last few months, however, it's been coming down because we've been getting jobs. And job creation has been occurring, which actually is a very good sign. I'm an economist, so I'm a bit of a geek, and so what we do is we look at different measures of unemployment. So you look at the bottom part of this slide here. I guess it's not up on the monitors again, unfortunately. The bottom part demonstrates how the government want you to see unemployment rate dropping down about 8%, but what's the real unemployment rate? About 14.2%. So is it any better? No, it's not. Is it coming down a little bit? Yes, it is. These are people, these include people that quit looking, they include people that are working part-time. So it includes a number of other groups which we tend to focus on a bit more. But even that number has been coming down. That actually I think is a positive thing as well. It's going to take a long time, however, to get back to where we were. The job growth is all being driven by companies like your own, by the private sector, not by the government. Most governments, state, federal, they've got a bit of an issue with their budgets right now. And are they employing? No, they are not. They are laying off. They're minimising, which actually I think is actually a very good thing, but a topic for a different day. But the private sector certainly is showing job growth. It is not, again, as robust as I would like to see. Why? Well, unfortunately it's 2012, and 2012 is an election year. Not much happens in an election year from a federal government standpoint. They say, you know what, we're more concerned about getting re-elected rather than making some fairly difficult decisions which need to get made. That translates to companies saying, you know, I fired a lot of people. I laid off a lot of people back in 2007, 2008. I don't want to do it again. I don't have to go back and sit at the bar and commiserate myself over double gin and tonics. So what they're saying is we're growing, but they're growing below capacity. Peak to trough job growth gives you an idea. We used to have V-shaped recessions back in the day, and then V-shaped, which was back in the 70s. V-shaped became kind of U-shaped, and then we ended up with our most recent one. And I took out this fun little census workers. V's became U's, U's became square root shaped. We were down, we kind of came up a bit, and we kind of flatlined. We are still over 5 million jobs shy of our prior peak employment. That is a dramatically large number still. And we are right now 50 months into this. So it's taking a long time. The recovery is arduous. We're going the right way. I personally don't believe that a double-dip recession is in the cards. I think there's some other anomalies out there, but I think it's highly unlikely that it will drop us back into recession again. But we still have a long way to go. From a stable employment standpoint, I'm expecting probably somewhere around late 2014, early 2015, before we get back up to stable employment. We are through the worst of it, no doubt. We are expanding, that's a good thing, but it is without a doubt below par. Debt, our credit card debt. An interesting thing to look at. We basically borrowed or had debt outstanding almost $1 trillion back in 2008. And for those non-economists out there, that's 12 zeros. It's a lot of zeros. Why? Well, we were buying every next bright, shiny thing we could because we all had home equity lines of credit. They were great, weren't they? Then we also had credit card companies. I burned through 2 shredders getting rid of these credit card applications. There was a lot of them. Mortgage applications. My dog qualified. So we were just buying stuff. Then all of a sudden we started deleveraging. We started saying, you know, things have changed. It's 2008. We're seeing a recession going on. We're going to stop buying stuff. And quite frankly, we literally did. In addition to the fact that the credit card applications stopped as well. Now, over the last few months, last 6 months, they've started to make an appearance again. I'm not sure about you, but I'm starting to see certain credit card companies saying, yeah, we've got a card for you. It'll be interesting to see. We deleveraged. I think right now we're coming back out of it. That's a good thing. However, has it changed the way we buy things? Possibly, yes, I think it has. And that in turn is going to lead to slower growth going forward. So overall, I mean, policymakers need to start making some policy. It's unlikely to see from the other Washington, not this one. But we have still got some problems. Obviously, Fannie and Freddie are big issues relative to GSAs. Are they going to get made this year? It's unlikely, but I think that in turn is going to lead us to be a bit slower in our recovery than we would like to, certainly for the private sector. The naysayers out there always tell me, you know, Gardner, you're always a kind of glass half full economist. Raging inflation, 70s style inflation is going to come back. No, it's not. At least not in the near term. The reason why I say that is that for the better part, inflation requires 2 things. It requires stable employment and it requires income growth. Quite frankly, the US has neither. Certainly not income growth. Employees are out there saying, now, if I'm working now, I think I'm safe in my job. But am I going to ask for a pay rise? Oh, heck no, I'm not. And they're not. I was actually on television a while ago talking about productivity. But if you listen to CNBC, everyone talks about productivity growth. And what that really means is you're working your staff harder. Are you hiring more? No, you're not. They're out there saying, we need help. No, work harder. And that is a problem. It gets to a point where you have to start hiring. And we're almost at that inflection point right now. Do I see inflation? No, it's not too bad right now. We obviously watch oil. Oil numbers are high. Some issues going on there. I think they'll probably peak fairly shortly. We will do nothing but what we do best, which is complain and go out and buy Priuses. 2008 is what we did. All of a sudden, gas prices hit $4. What did we do? Ran our way to Toyota. And then gas prices went down, and what did we do? Sell the Prius and buy a real car. and that's what we do. Watch oil prices, a double dip, I think is quite unlikely. It's certainly possible, but I think it's unlikely that we'll see it. Businesses are frozen, they want to hire. They're looking to DC for some advice. Not quite getting it right now. We're not seeing the income growth. Now, this is true nationally. However, locally, we are actually seeing income growth. We're in the top quintile, top 20% relative to income growth in the US, in Washington state. That's actually a good thing. But we do have the pigs. The pigs are then stupid. Pigs. Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. Stupid. Spain, Turkey, United Kingdom, Portugal, Italy, and Dubai. The Eurozone, we concentrate too much on the Eurozone, what's going on there. Now, are they important to us? Yes, they are. If you look at this, the chart goes up where we send our exports in the US. And we send 22% of all our exports to Europe. Now, if they're not buying, that is a problem. Back when the Eurozone was created back in the late 90s, I was asked what I thought about it. I thought it was a terrible idea. England should never join, Great Britain should never join. And they didn't. Very good thing. But the reason being, it's not for the fact that I had some great grandiose idea and theory of what was going on. I've travelled in Europe. And one thing you learn very quickly when you travel around Europe, people in the north of Europe work. People in the south of Europe don't. And it's really no more complex than that. Greece, for example, 50% of all commercial transactions in Greece are cash under the table, no taxes paid whatsoever. Half of all commercial transactions. Actually, some tax inspectors from Italy went off to a place called Klosters in Austria. It's a very famous, very exotic ski resort. And they saw these Ferraris and Lamborghinis. They wrote down the license plates. And I said, okay, who actually owns these cars? They raised it back. The average stated income for people owning these cars was 30,000 euros a year. That would pay for a tyre on a Ferrari, let alone a year's salary. So there's kind of a bit of lying going on out there. We are looking too much, actually, what's going on there. So stock market, all of a sudden, Angela Merkel falls over, Sarkozy has a bad day, our Dow Jones index plummets. You have a good day, she has a good hair day, it goes back up again. It is an issue. Is it going to be enough to take us down into recession? I think that's very, very unlikely. I certainly don't expect to see it, and I think we're looking too myopically at it. That said, there are several banks who are very focused on what's going on there because of the amount of debt they have in Europe, outstanding. So we'll see. So nationally, are we growing? Are we expanding? Yes, we are. Do I expect the expansion to be under par? Yes, I do, but it is going to be an expansion. Locally, what's going on here? Now here's again, similar chart, 12-month year-over-year employment growth. We got hit harder in our last recession, basically, than the US did. Why was that? Remember the dot-com thing? Yeah, not the smartest move known to man. So we lost a lot of jobs very quickly when that burst. Lost a lot, we are coming back. And we're coming back really rather well relative to employment growth. And again, a similar situation as to the chart I showed you earlier on. Look at the old recessions. We will likely recover faster than the recession that hit Seattle in 2001. So, I mean, modestly so. I think we probably will. It wouldn't surprise if we beat it by about 9 months relative to getting back to peak employment. And the 1990 recession was kind of a fun little down, back up again. The last one actually hit us very hard, again, mainly because of the dot-coms in 2001. The latest one, the recovery is good, it's on its way. We actually dropped down quicker, but we're heading back up quicker. So I think locally, I expect to see improving employment. Certainly we're seeing that already. Is it going to be faster than the US as a whole? Yes, it is. But again, it's all driven by the private sector. And private sector employers are out there. And they are starting to hire. That is, again, a very, very positive thing. And a commitment to the Northwest, which I think is very important as well. We could be worse. This is Detroit's employment for the last 10 years. The lost decade, they call it, in the Rust Belt. Now, if Detroit can create a job, which they did, and they 3 over here, then we can as well. So, I mean, they're suddenly grown, and we thanks, I think, the better parts of Ford Motor Company are doing amazingly well out there. Even GM's making money now. Remember government motors? Because you own them. So let's look at the employment. We are seeing employment growth. It's being led right now, just year over year, February versus February. Latest numbers we've got. Education is doing well, aerospace is doing well, leisure is doing well, hospitality. That's important. That got hit very, very hard in 2008. Now hotels are starting to grow again. People are even talking now about building more hotels in Seattle. Interesting to see if it happens or not. There's a number of projects which are being talked about right now. And business services, which is basically a lot of us. Still losing in government, financial activities, unfortunately, for those bank type people out here, still not recovering as rapidly as one would like to think. So no big surprise. The only surprise I have is the information technology. They haven't started a lot of hiring yet. However, it looks negative, but if you actually look at software, software is positive. You have to be a little bit careful, it's kind of more macro numbers. What is very interesting here, I was giving a speech to the Master Builders Association, of whom I'm their economist. And I remember giving a speech in 2009. And the construction number, which is showing up now as positive 2,200, was minus 9,800. And that was one of those dinner speeches with lots of vodka. We are growing in construction jobs. That's good. And they're all building apartments. And more apartments, and more apartments. So, but at least they're building something, which is a good thing. I live in South Lake Union, and I'm looking out across 8 cranes right now, just out of my window. Things which we haven't seen for a long time. So that actually is extraordinarily positive. I said, being a geek and an economist, I dream in Excel. So what I thought it'd be really cool to do would be to look at, look across the state and who's growing and who's not. So, here we go. The size of the bubble, size of the economy, that kind of makes sense. The horizontal axis is a 3-month change in employment, annualized. The vertical is 12-month change. So where you want to be is in the top right-hand quadrant. And Moses are. Longview's doing awfully well. I'm not quite sure why, but it is. Unlike Kennewick, doing awfully badly. But the bottom line is that we are expanding, we're growing, employment is growing, and we're heading more to the centre. Even Olympia is doing kind of okay. So the job growth is there. Now, here's the really cool one. What sectors are growing? And it's kind of bifurcated. Information is dropping down, financial activity is not doing well. Now there's retail trade, which is a bit surprising. Okay in the short term, not so much in the long. But aerospace, leisure, education, construction, doing well. And so it is a bit bifurcated. All sectors are not created equal, but we are seeing expansion. The unemployment rate's dropping down, which is good. I think we always tend to do better than the US as a whole. We're doing the same thing here, about 7.3, 7.4% right now. It's going to drop down. I think it's going to drop down fairly quickly. And certainly what the numbers that I'm hearing from certain companies relative to potential layoffs, relative to potentially new hires, it is looking rather good. So we are doing, without a doubt, better than the US as a whole. And compared to the other West Coast states, the West Coast markets, I thought I'd take a look at all of them. Poor Reno. Reno's not doing very well at all. But we are basically tied with Phoenix relative to job growth. Better than Portland, San Francisco, better than Boise. And I give a number of speeches in those markets, and it's interesting. California, functionally bankrupt, quite frankly. Not doing well. Little pockets of Silicon Valley that are doing okay. Beyond that, really not much growth at all. Idaho goes where the semiconductor industry goes. Not going well right now. And as such, it's not expanding at its capacity. Phoenix seems to be growing. I'm not quite sure why Phoenix is growing as much as it is right now, but certainly it suffered heavily from the housing bubble. But we are, without a doubt, the best of the West Coast markets right now, metropolitan areas, relative to overall job growth, relative to the overall economy. I can speak to Wyoming and all over the place, not doing well at all. Here, yeah, there's no question about it. We are expanding at a faster rate right now than any other market on the West Coast. So yeah, I think without a doubt it's the best market right now. I expect that to continue to be the case through this year. We're very lucky. And why are we very lucky? I've got the 5 Bs, which are the areas which I think we expand the most. And those are going to drive our growth going forward. What are they? First one obviously is Boeing. You cannot ignore the behemoth that is Boeing. They are amazingly important for our economy. Will continue to be, hopefully, amazing for our economy locally. Second one's interesting. Second thing is biotechnology. Biotech is a very important business. We are the 5th largest biotech centre in the country. We don't do production, we do research. There tends to be a lot of people coming in, creating something and then disappearing off somewhere else. But they are big. I think there will be a company in Seattle that will find a cure for a form of cancer in the next couple of years. Very, very important. Third one is bytes, software, technology. And it's kind of bifurcated here as well. If you look at Seattle, we have a ton of companies, mainly in Pioneer Square. They're in software development. They're creating apps. They're creating things for these little doodies. And there's lots of them. They are growing. On Ben Bellevue, for example, on the other hand, between Northeast 6th and Northeast 8th, you have 355 companies, gaming companies, creating 350 of them in about 5 square blocks, 5 blocks. It's quite amazing. Big things. So there's about 1 billion computers on the planet, which are all getting old. If they're Microsoft ones, then after 4 years, we don't know what happens. They just stop working. We have to buy new ones. So we're doing that. And not only that part, so we're seeing that technology is growing. So those kind of companies, large and small, are important. So you have Boeing, you have Bytes, which is the software. Fourth one, batteries, carbon technology. I mentioned earlier on about the Prius. I was lucky enough to have lunch with a gentleman called Alan Mullally, who now heads Ford. And he was saying, Matthew, if we could get a car which went more than 40 miles, at more than 40 miles an hour, we'd be all over it. Oh, it didn't cost the price of a Prius. There's a couple of companies in Bothell that are very, very closely on the cutting edge of carbon technology. I think they could do very well. The final one is one we underestimate the value of horribly. That's philanthropy, benefactors. Within 10 minutes drive of where you are right now, you have the highest concentration of billionaires anywhere outside the Lower East Side of Manhattan. That is huge. I live in South Lake Union, I look down across the Gates Foundation, a small little 900,000 square foot building dedicated to give away $2 billion a year of Warren Buffett's money, let alone Mr. and Mrs. Gates' money. They create satellite businesses around them. And it's not just them, it's Bagley Rice, so it's a lot of other individuals who are extremely wealthy who are giving money away. I work for the Paul G. Allen Charitable Foundation as well. Mr. Allen's great. He'll give money away from Alaska to Idaho. He's like, I'll take care of the Northwest, Gates can take care of the planet, oh, it's all good. And it's kind of what he does. Those companies create other businesses in support services, direct and indirect services. Again, I think we underestimate that hugely. It's a very important thing for our area. Diversification. We used to we went where Boeing went. Now it's changing. We're diversifying. It's a very good thing. It's a good thing to see. I hope that's going to continue. And we are one of the only West Coast states that have income growth. That is extremely, extremely important. The salaries here are good. Education levels are extremely high here. And that attracts businesses to us. Again, very, very important thing. Yeah, Amazon. Everyone asks me, okay, what about Amazon? What about Amazon? It's great. I think it's a commitment to this area. Maybe. Knowing the principles there, they're happy now can change their minds from time to time. I'll believe it when I see it. It's more my argument than anything else. But again, they're kind of a petulant child. I mean, a small young company bounces around. If it does go ahead, it's making a very substantive commitment to Seattle. I think that's an extraordinarily positive thing. Stability, yeah. I wish I had more time to talk about what I think about the housing market. I don't, but I'll happily speak to anyone after this. But I think we are seeing some stability in it, in the more urban areas. That's going to help because that's going to increase our own confidence and therefore our spending patterns. It's going to be a good thing. Development. All we're going to see built this year, all the cranes you're going to see are all going to be apartment cranes. They are already, and that's what they will be. We will not see a spec office built for a while. We're not going to see a condo built for years and years and years. It's going to be a long time before we see any vertical construction, type 1 concrete construction condos. It just doesn't make financial sense right now. Steady as she goes. I think we're doing well. I think we're growing. I think we're expanding. I think we're doing better than most other areas in the country. Definitely doing better than other areas across the western United States. So with that, I will happily answer any questions that anyone might have very briefly. Anyone? No?
What's your view on tax policy in the country?
Oh boy. Yeah,
you need a drink?
Where's the body here?
Yeah, please, double. It's always going to be that continuous argument. How do you fund a country? Do you raise taxes in order to fund it? If you raise taxes, you reduce consumption. Reduce consumption, the economy shrinks. I think there's got to be an equitable measure. I did like what Buffett said. Not necessarily his specific program, the Buffett rule, which got voted down yesterday in the Senate. But the view is that when you have people that are making an awful lot of money that are paying on aggregate below 20% in taxes, that's a bit of an issue. So I think it comes to the way taxes are affected not directly on salaries, but on investments. You're paying 15% in those cases. That needs to probably go up. But it's a very, very hard call when it comes to... but bottom line is taxes here are still lower than they are in most of Europe. So most of the first world nations, it is lower than. The problem is basically it's a national debt and it's too big. We need to figure out how to get that down. I don't mind running budget deficits. I'm a Keynesian economist. That's okay. But to what degree? And unfortunately, we're spending way more than we need to be spending. That needs to come down. Can that all be funded by taxes? No, it can't. However, I think we need to adjust tax policy. I think we need to make it more simple. Of course, tax day being yesterday, right? And I was looking at my stuff and my accounts, and I don't understand one word of it. I'm supposed to be good at numbers. It's ridiculously complex. So I think ultimately it's going to probably have to come up. Not for all income cohorts, but I think for the higher ones, yes, it will. Councilman McCarter.
But just a simple question. Why is the condo market so much weaker than the apartments? I understand a bit of it, but we have like the second highest percent of single households in major metropolitan areas. I would think, and we have fairly good income, we have fairly disposable income. It seems like people would want to live in an urban center and own something. So,
Right. Owning something. Quick, very quick. I know. Am I okay? Okay. Quick poll. Who here had a kid go off to college, kid graduate, kid's now living back with you again? You're not alone, man. You really aren't. I mean, there's not. What you didn't do was the right thing. Is kid goes to college, you sell house before kid comes back. That's what it's supposed to do. So, to answer your question, it's some reasons. One of which is we're not creating enough households. But the big thing relative to condos is that these children, especially younger generation coming out, you think you want to own or to buy, they're looking at their parents saying, you lost how much? Point one. Point two is the 1-800-MUM helpline, down payment assistance program. Yeah, mum's not answering the phone anymore. Qualifying for a mortgage, extraordinarily difficult. When it comes to building condos, all in, it's going to cost you even today, even with union concessions, north of $600 a foot to build them. Therefore, you're going to have to sell them for above $700, maybe even $800 a foot. We are not an $800 a foot market, period. Even on our best day, we weren't. And that's the height of the bubble. So you look at Type 1 concrete and steel construction, it doesn't make financial sense. Point two is banks will not lend you penny one if you want to build one. We've had developers sat on their hands for 3 years because they haven't been able to build, the market hasn't been there. In addition to the market not being there, banks have been saying they're not lending any money. Banks basically quit lending money. Now they started again, but what's the only thing they will lend money on? Apartments. I mean, you cannot get penny one out of bank to build a condo. You can to build an apartment project. So they're going where the money is, and also where the demand is, because what you've got is a cohort of people that are putting off buying because they've seen what's going on, they can't afford it, they can't get the down payments. So, and secondly, it is too expensive. So I think we're putting it off for several years, but it's still too expensive to build. And that's the biggest thing. Ultimately, will that come back? Yes, it will. 1 in 5 people aged between aged below 32 lives at home in this country. 20%. It's great story. So we slow that down. So we talk about, then if you look at the other demographic, i.e. the older baby boomers, sorry, not myself, who are moving down, they're saying, okay, well, I do it, but I have to sell my single family house. And that's not easy to do yet anyway. Although real estate brokers that I'm speaking to, there's a huge lack of supply of houses. There's a lot of buyers out there and no sellers right now. It's kind of an interesting theory. So we see that slow down. Ultimately, is it going to come back? Yes, it will. Ultimately, are we going to continue to see residential development? How long have you worked for council now?
15 years.
15. Okay. So from the decade of the 90s, look at downtown Seattle, the decade of the 90s, we grew by 74% in our residential population to a whopping 16,000 people lived downtown. That was it. But it was still the highest in the country in that decade. We grew again by about 40% the following decade. So, but it is still, relatively speaking, small. Why is it? Well, the topography we've got, the land that we've got, certainly if you look at downtown, we have mountains, we have hills, we have water, all kinds of things like that. So there are issues in terms of supply. But in terms of demand, the demand's just not going to be there right now for condos. It is for apartments for right now. I'm calling for an apartment bubble, localized one. I think we're building too many of them in select markets, not across the region. If you want to build an apartment in Redmond, go for it. Here, Belltown, I'd be a bit anxious. So I think we're at that point. That's basically the reason why. Our home ownership rates come down. We always have been at a lower rate than the US as a whole. But are we going to turn into a nation of renters, as some have been saying, after the bursting of housing bubble? No, we're not. But we are going to delay that home purchase. That's what we're seeing right now. So it's going to come. It's going to come in a while, though.
Thank
You're welcome. Ma'am.
So you talked about the apartment sector growing because of the banks losing money. For the other sectors, where is the financing coming from? Are the companies themselves spending some of the reserves? Are there other income streams that are allowing them to happen?
Well, you're talking different land use. I mean, it's all a function of demand. I mean, banks say, okay, we'll lend my own apartment project, but is there demand for an office building, for example? in Seattle right now. Seattle vacancy rates right now downtown about 17%, a bit lower than that depending on how you look at it. However, rental rates are not sufficient to justify new construction. So you're paying in the mid-20s a foot triple net. It's got to be up in the high 30s a foot triple net to justify new construction. So we've still got space out there, but is it likely we'll see a spec building? No one's going to build a spec building, at least not right now. Retail, vacancy rates are low, but again, the rental rates aren't sufficient to justify much in the way of new spending. And if you look at it, depending on how you measure it, there's a lot of vacant storefronts, retail storefronts in Seattle, certainly Pioneer Square, which need to get addressed at some stage or another. So smaller guys are out there. The small people don't want to expand. Why? Because again, their lines of credit, like everyone else, were cut. And they need to spend money to create the good that they're going to sell on. And if they can't do that, if their lines are cut like most were, they're not expanding either. So I think you look at it in terms of demand, apartments, yes. Office, no. Industrial uses, yes, I think we'll see more of those that's down in Kent Valley. It's a 250 million square foot market down there. So I think that we'll see some of that going on. Single family homes, the smaller builders being priced out of the marketplace. Why? Because the nationals are now in town. And they can afford to self-finance. So I think we lost a lot of builders. Average builder in Puget Sound built between 25 and 35 homes per year, average. Everyone assumes these big guys, they're not. They're small guys, and most of them, unfortunately, did not make it. Those that did are having a hard time. Again, they can't get funding. We never really had, other than Centex, a couple of D.R. Horton, all the nationals were never here. Now they're all here. The Richmond America homes are here. The NAR homes are here. Sumitomo, you've got these guys here who have tons and buckets of money. And they can afford to build stuff. So, unfortunately, the small single-family builder is having an increasingly hard time building. So, if you look at different land use and demand for it, that's why I think it's unlikely we'll see much other than apartments being built this year. Anyone else on that?
Do you see any market for conversion condo to apartment?
That's a good question about conversion. Yeah, I mean, if we start seeing demand for condominiums, how is that demand going to be satisfied? It will be satisfied by conversions of apartments to condos. There's no question about it.
No, condos.
Oh, condos to apartments?
Yeah.
No, that's a legal nightmare to do above anything else. We've seen it done, well, we saw it done at Braeburn in Belgium, but it was early enough then you could actually, and they basically, the people that had reserved and wanted to buy there, they said, great, give me my money back and I'm gone, I'm happy about that, because the amount they were paying was more than the value of the unit. That was okay. All projects now have closed enough units, no, that's not going to work. But it is an interesting statement though, because what we will see is conversions of apartments to condos. I mean, every apartment developer does a condo map on the building. It's a cheap thing to do, have a lawyer draw it up. That down the road at some stage, if we see demand, that's where we'll see that demand satisfied. I believe... Ready?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We done? Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much, Matthew. That was very, very hopeful and inspirational. It looks like we can feel good about our Seattle market, and that was a very good message, I think, for us to hear today. At this time, we're going to go ahead and present our annual awards for 2011. So we'll switch gears here a little bit, and we're going to start with the big kahuna, the business of the year. American West Bank, as we know, was selected from about 40 unique businesses in West Seattle, and they came out on top of the heap for a variety of reasons. We weighed all of the nominees, and really we looked at the contributions that American West did in several different areas, not only their community outreach. We had comments from individuals who were saying they enjoy the personal connection and the friendly environment and the helpfulness of the staff. We also looked at how American West interacts in our business community, and we had recommendations from some folks with large real estate portfolios who said that the service and the professionalism and the ability to conduct business with American West was just outstanding. And we also looked at the nonprofit sector. When there was a fundraiser coordinated in Japan for Japan relief after the tsunami last year, and American West right out of the gate said, we're going to help you, we'll set up the account for you. So in 3 different areas, we looked at all those areas and the way they contributed to our local community. So that was definitely the reason for the award, and we're very proud to present the Business of the Year to American West Bank.
First, I'd like to say thank you to the West Seattle Chamber of Commerce. They've been a huge supporter, and it's great to see the event here with so many supporters of the community so we can really work together. I think that it's really important that we continue the interaction and the engagement. We have a lot going on, definitely. I'm excited. West Seattle is much different than it was before, and so that's a great opportunity to keep the engagement going, and I'm excited to be here. We are a business-focused community bank, and we are developing lasting relationships, and we want to provide solutions. So a lot of you have had the privilege of working with, many of others I haven't. I think that a lot of us share a common sense of pride, though, whether we work or live here in West Seattle. And so that's really great. That's allowed me to enjoy what I do best. So I look forward to keeping it up. So thank you again, and yeah.
Thank you, David. And for those of you who don't know, that's David Kim. He's the branch manager here at the branch on Alaska. And he's also the chair of our ambassador committee. So folks that are thinking about joining our chamber, you'll probably be hearing from David. Great contribution, many contributions to the chamber. We appreciate that. Our next award goes to the Emerging Business of the Year. This goes to the Grove Hotel down in West Seattle, in the Triangle area. I remember in 2010 when I took over the chairmanship of the chamber in our annual meeting in January, we did a little breakout session. We asked folks in our membership, what does West Seattle need? What's missing in West Seattle? And it came back with 2 things, predominantly: hospital and a hotel. Well, we got one. We got a hotel finally in West Seattle. We can actually send our parents to when they come to town. So I'd like to introduce Lynn Sweeney from the Grove.
Thank you and good morning. I'm Lynn Sweeney with the Grove West Seattle Inn, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you so much for this opportunity and this award. It's very exciting and fulfilling for us as a family. Having been born and raised here, my parents as well, we certainly can acknowledge the need for some comfortable, friendly, affordable lodging here in West Seattle, as many of you can. So when we took ownership back in late 2010, we were enthusiastic about the opportunity to establish that type of environment where we could welcome our visitors to West Seattle. And over the course of the past year, we did a full renovation of the property. It is now very clean, very modern, very friendly. But more importantly, we're doing the ongoing efforts of the continuous improvement that it takes to really ensure that the guest experience really exceeds everyone's expectations. So we're doing sort of some ongoing, constant evaluation and continuous improvements to ensure a great guest experience. And so we're excited about the opportunity, and truly I think it's appropriate to have been awarded the Emerging Business Award, because that's really what we are. We're an emerging business, and it's sort of exciting actually this weekend in conjunction with the 50th anniversary of the World's Fair here in Seattle. That's actually why the site was built. That's where the property was built, was 50 years ago. So this weekend we're also celebrating our 50th birthday. It was started by a husband and wife named Evelyn and Martin, and it was the Marlin, for those of you who might remember that property. So it's kind of an exciting weekend for us as well. This is a great opportunity for those of you who haven't been by. Please feel free to come in anytime. We'd love to welcome you, show you around, show you the guest rooms. We have some small meeting spaces, and we're at the corner of 36th and Alaska. And once again, I just want to thank the Chamber for this opportunity. It's very exciting for us. Appreciate it.
I think it also points to the opening of the Grove and its it's sort of an anchor facility down there in the triangle. It points to a really strong redeveloped triangle area. Something that the Chamber's been active in since 2002, 2003, looking at that triangle area and how it's improving. Trader Joe's open on the weekend. You actually see pedestrians now down on Fauntleroy Avenue. How unusual is that? I've lived here my whole life, boy. Okay, our next award goes to our nonprofit of the year, and that's the West Seattle Garden Tour. Thanks for coming out today. Many of you know about the West Seattle Garden Tour. I believe this year's tour is on July 15th. Is that correct? Okay, and that's a tour where these folks that have these private gardens open their gardens up to the general community, and they welcome folks in to come take a look at the fantastic gardens that these guys have put together for over many, many years. In addition to being a tour, they also have a very active hand in nonprofit. The funds that this group collects, they obviously pay for whatever administrative expenses they have, websites and programs and maps and things like that. Anything left over, they donate. I mean, how cool is that? You know, they collect money and they give it back. So we wanted to recognize that. I'm going to welcome up Jim Reed. He's the president of West Seattle Garden Tour.
Well, I first need to acknowledge the folks sitting in the back corner, my friends and colleagues who are on the West Seattle Garden Committee tour. We are 2 tables strong here this morning. We also recognize that many people sitting here at the tables this morning have been sponsors of the tour, or you have volunteered, or even some of you have been gardeners, and we thank you for both your support and your involvement. I just want to cite one statistic that gives some evidence to the fact that you have made the right choice today in picking us as the nonprofit. Picking up on something that Dave said. Since we were founded in 1994 by Irene Stewart, who was a longtime member of the West Seattle Chamber of Commerce, we have raised and donated to worthy causes $230,000. And in the last 4 years, with the recession that has gripped both our nation and our community members have felt a real obligation to step forward and make up for some of the decline in government funding of social service agencies, as well as even some of the decline in private charitable giving. So just in the last 4 years, we have raised and given away $77,000. We are a group of people, all volunteers, who love gardening and, for that matter, good food and wine. But our great legacy, Irene Stewart's legacy, and the legacy of those of us who have followed her, is that we feel this obligation to support social service agencies that are supporting seniors, children, the environment, arts groups. So whether it's Arts West or the Seattle Chinese Garden, the Duwamish Longhouse, Walking on Logs, Seattle Tilt, we have been there for them, recognizing that they are making the West Seattle neighborhood a greater place to live, and we're trying to do our job to support them. As Dave mentioned, our tour is Sunday, July 15th from 9 to 5. We look forward to seeing you there. And you have one more week to join us in doing our good work by being a sponsor. So our sponsorship chairman, Bill Hibbler, is sitting in the corner. And if you need a testimonial to the personal benefits that are derived from being a sponsor, I would also ask you to talk to Sherry Cruz, our #1 sponsor of the last 3 years. So thank you so much, West Seattle Chamber of Commerce, for this fantastic award. We are delighted.
Well, thanks again, and congratulations. And then our final award of the year. This is our West Sider of the Year award. And this is where we recognize an individual who's made exceptional contributions within our community. And this year, I think, is very deserving. Pete Spalding is our recipient this year. I asked Pete for a bio in advance of this event, and I was impressed. I mean, it was about a page and a half of different things he's done throughout the years. I won't go into everything, but some of his current activity. Obviously, he's been very active with the West Seattle Food Bank and is past chair of the West Seattle Food Bank, and did wonderful work over there with Fran and her group. He serves currently on the Southwest Precinct Advisory Council, which is very important, obviously, and the Pigeon Point Neighborhood Council. That's just a few of the things that he does. Pete is obviously active in very many areas, and one thing that really is remarkable about Pete is that he's very good at balancing community needs and business needs, and he's always listening to both sides of the equation, because sometimes those needs are a little bit in conflict. And one thing that really impressed me about Pete is his ability to listen to both sides and make an educated and thoughtful decision before moving forward with something. So it's my personal and professional honor to present the award West Sider of the Year to Pete Spalding.
First of all, thank you very much, Dave, and to the Chamber for this award. I think that there are a lot of people in the community that do a whole lot more than I do and are much more deserving, but I'm not going to give it back. I'd also like to recognize my friends that are here from the West Seattle Food Bank, which is one of my endeavors that's close to my heart. I spend a lot of time doing that, so thank you all for your support. And I'd also like to thank the person that's the best friend in my life and supports me in everything I do, and that's my wife, Carrie. And finally, I thought that I'll leave you with is anyone that's gotten an email from me knows that in my signature line, I say, be the change that you want to see in the world. Thank you.